Hi, welcome to the Ketriana Yvonne Show. I'm Ketriana Yvonne, and today's guest is Cynthia Lynn Jones, a poet and writer that we're going to hear a little bit about today. I met Cynthia in New York Writers Coalition group that we both attended, and she's just one of those people that, from the day I met her, her words kind of lifted me and stayed with me. So I asked her to come on the show today to share some of her work. Welcome to the show, Cynthia.
Thank you so much, Ketriana. I appreciate this opportunity.
Okay, so tell me, so let everyone know how long you've been writing, what you want to share today, and just what inspires you to write.
I've been writing since I was a child, but I've just started taking my practice seriously, maybe the past several years. Um, I'm a reader, love to learn, love to research, and I've just been enjoying the process of being in workshops. I've met a lot of writers who have inspired me and encouraged me to continue my practice.
Okay.
So I'm feeling good about it now.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think as a writer, for myself, it's like you always meet people in workshops, and you have people that tend to be a little shyer about speaking and reading their work. And then usually what happens when they open up their mouth and you hear what they wrote, you're like, why did they take so long to say that? It's like amazing. So for me, it's like I've met so many writers and poets, and being a poet myself, it's like I can say that most people that are poets, they're poets for a reason because they're great. So, but they just don't know it. So today is an opportunity for Cynthia to step out, because I called her and I was like, do you do open mics? And so this is her starting out. And like I said, she's a wonderful poet. I met her last year.
Yeah, it's been about a
And
year and a half.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I, saw her in the street one day, and I just told her to get her work together and, get her book ready, because I believe in her. And so anyway, she's here today.
Thank
And
you.
do you want to tell us a little bit more about, are you from Brooklyn? Tell us about where you're from.
Yes. Um, I'm born and raised in Brooklyn. Lived in New Jersey for some years, but I'm back in Brooklyn again, and I'm very happy. Yes, I'm from Brooklyn, born and raised, and publicly educated in the public school system here in New York. Went to Adelphi University, went to City College. But I'm more of an autodidact than an academician. Um, I'm a reader and always been, a writer. And I'm just at a place now where I'm really enjoying the practice of writing and the community and fellowship that I have with the community of writers that I'm meeting.
So when you say you've always been a writer, when did you start writing? And was it poetry or a journal?
I
What
think
was?
I started writing as a child, journal writing, poetry, and then I became like the unofficial obituary writer
Oh,
of my family and community. And it was like, see, enough of y'all. Y'all just dying too much. I got too much work. But yeah, so now I'm just re-embracing my own writing practice. But what I'm finding for me is that my ancestors are calling me.
right,
Every time I write, I think I'm writing about me,
right.
and I end up going back to them. So that's fueling a lot of the work that I'm doing now. My ancestors calling me to write their stories, the stories that weren't told, the stories in my family that we didn't speak about or haven't spoken about. And that's what I'm finding that is driving my practice at
Right.
this point.
So you're finding that's your purpose, and we spoke about this before, about when you were telling me you were writing and it wasn't you, and I was talking about a similar experience I had in a workshop at Weeksville, and how for me, I call my writing name is Spirit Writer, and so I call that sort of part of spirit writing. And sometimes it was hard for me to believe when I used to hear other people. Well, it was one writer, a book called Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh, and he was talking about how he was ranting and raving and angry and asking God these questions, and then his pen started writing. He wrote this book, which I read all 12 of them. And I was like, I don't know if I believed it at that time. So when it happens to you, you do believe it. And it's like some people, you wake up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and, you have your muse that comes, or it's a reason that you wake up and it's a message that's trying to come to you. So I was a big Wayne Dyer fan, and he used to always say, like, to just stay up and try to get the message and, right at that time. So you find yourself that happens to you, or?
Yeah, it'll just be moments that just one idea will come through, and then you realize you're speaking in the voice of someone that you are related to,
Right.
connected to, an ancestor,
Right.
an uncle, a aunt, a
Right.
cousin, a friend. And it's powerful because it just totally shifts what you thought you were doing. Totally. And it's real.
Right.
It is very real, for me.
For all
So
of us.
that's where I'm at right now.
Okay. Well, that's a wonderful journey to be on, discovering what it is to be a writer, and especially when you have voices coming to you to who didn't have a voice and they want you to tell their story.
Yes.
So that's like a wonderful opportunity to, get someone's history, preserve it, which is something that's very important now since we, especially as black people, you lose. I mean, first of all, a lot of people don't know the history from the beginning. And then if you don't tell the stories, then they're lost. So I think one of the opportunities we have now as writers is to write as much as we can and document our family history, preserve, so we can have something to pass on, the stories of our families, stories of people that come through us that maybe we didn't even know, but just to continue that. And so you had one story, I don't remember, it was maybe somewhere you worked, and I think it started with the water cooler was in it.
I don't know
It
if
was something where you worked, and eyeglasses.
I don't know if I have that one
Okay, well,
today, but that was kind of funny. Yeah, but
so I'm just gonna let you find your piece that you want to start with,
okay,
and
because now I'm getting nervous.
like I said, Cynthia, don't get nervous.
Okay,
It's
so
Ketriana here.
all right,
I make people feel comfortable.
all right. So I'm gonna read the one piece,
Okay,
and then
let's
we'll
see
talk
where
about
your
that.
spirit takes you after that.
I've always wondered about the MRI machines, the supersonic high-tech gadgets that can take pictures of you in layers and levels and dimensions and divisions from the top of your head to the tips of your toes. Machines that can deliver sonic waves and radiation to attack cancerous cells and tumors that try to kill healthy organs. Why can't they just heal all of you? Heal everything wrong with you. The same way the dye is injected for a PET CT scan with contrast. Let that dye in that radioactive syringe, you and all the cancer everywhere. Fix your lisp. Stitch your split right earlobe. Straighten out your knock knees, sciatica and spinal stenosis, your bunions and hammer toes. I mean, You under there and in there anyway. All the colors, sounds, and lights. Might as well party to heal your life on a strobe light cellular level and have a real hallelujah house music moment. When the right and left hands of God, or whatever the most high universal truth you believe in, or should be believing in, comes to rescue you, along with all of your ancestors and all your unborn children. If you have to hold still for milliseconds or 45 minutes to be nuked, juiced, and zapped, why can't it heal you forever? Let the poison, the cancer, and the confusion break down and come out in your next bowel movement or urination. Why can't you run a fever, sweat out the death that clings and spreads and harbors and waits to spring a new attack some weeks, months, years down the line? Why can't those machines just really heal you everywhere, all the time, for forever?
Wow. Thank you, Cynthia. So I'm just going to take a moment to, yeah, I heard this piece before. And because I work in the medical profession, and MRI is such a common word that I hear on a daily basis. And so it's like I always think of this because people come in and they're like, I need an MRI. And as if, taking an x-ray or MRI is the cure. And so when I heard this, I was like, why can't it be that way? Because that would be the solution, And like I said, it's a test that so many people want to take just to find out something, but it's giving you more radiation and it's not a cure. But I was like, I really like what your answer would be. So, can you share like what was your inspiration to write that? And
Well, it's been a part of my personal experience. I'm a cancer survivor. I'm in
okay,
remission, and that's been part of my process.
okay, okay, makes sense. So, and this with breast cancer month in October and cancer walk, I would like to, like I said, I'd asked you for copies before, and
That's the only way I was able to find it. I was like, I know I tried to send it to her. Where is it? So,
yeah,
because I didn't have it written down in the book that I've carried with me today.
yeah. So I'll be walking the walk. I was just at Coney Island for the kickoff for the cancer walk, and it was like at the aquarium, the kickoff. So they had the sharks and the fish. And I was like so excited because I was videotaping and I'm like, I don't get excited about too much. So they have the water ceiling. And so you're looking up and you just see sharks and fish floating over your head. So I was like, ooh, I was just like a kid. So that was a good experience. So I, just putting it out there. If you haven't been to the Brooklyn Aquarium,
Yeah, it's time for me to go back.
check it out.
It's been more than a minute that I've been.
Yeah, and anybody that want to walk with us, send me an email. So, okay, so then you have some other poetry that you want to share. And what is your process? Do you write just what comes to your head, or do you do contests or?
Well, I'm just starting to become more disciplined with the encouragement of other writers that I'm writing with, because they're showing me the benefits that they're getting from submitting their work. I need to get better organizing myself, getting on submittable, actually doing
Right,
that on a more
right,
active level.
and that's a simple thing.
Yeah.
It's just like opening an account for everything. It's like for writers out there that still handwrite your work, it's like you're making more work for yourself because everything pretty much is online.
Yes.
And you can go to submittables.com and they have like contests and you submit things
Residencies,
to them
fellowships, yes.
through, an email, but a Word document. So a problem for me was going to workshops and writing in that moment. You end up with books and books of handwritten stuff that takes you some time to go back and put in your phone. So I do a lot of online writing for
Yes.
contests that's like right there in the moment and it's on the web. So then that kind of frees me up. And then I go back and I look at all these books and I'm like, all this stuff has to be typed. So, and then I use my phone, like, or maybe getting the practice of once you write it to discipline yourself.
Yes.
And as a serious writer, you have to prepare yourself. You can't.
You got to be ready.
Right.
You got to be ready.
Right. And for people, because I don't think you've really, maybe this is the first time you've been on TV or whatever.
Yes, it is.
But yeah, and as a writer, it's always like a scary thing. But that's a part of your profession. It's like you always going to be asked to read somewhere or be put on the spot. And I've learned so many things from, I don't know if I'm still a new writer, but I haven't been writing as long as most people. But it was like, just to know, like I remember, like I look back at some of the opportunities I have, but you had to think about it.
Yes.
And you didn't take those opportunities.
Right.
So now I look back and I say everything is an opportunity.
Exactly.
And don't second guess yourself. Just get up and do it.
Yes.
And it'll be fine.
Yes. Yes.
There are no mistakes.
Yes.
So every moment happens the way it's supposed to happen. People meet when they're supposed to happen.
Exactly.
So don't question the journey. Just be prepared.
Exactly.
So I guess that's probably the biggest challenge of being a writer is to just,
stay prepared.
Yeah, be prepared.
Because opportunities will open and people will cross your paths that can take you to the next level, take you into a zone that you didn't think you were ready for.
Exactly.
But you're ready.
Yeah.
But you got to stay ready.
Exactly. You have to, like I said before, it's like when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Yes.
So when the teacher appears, it's know that you're ready because otherwise that opportunity wouldn't be there. So, that's my advice.
I agree with you. Absolutely. Networking with everybody that I'm meeting from our workshop and the other writers' communities, folks are doing things, and they're doing things because they're ready.
Right. And it's a big community of people, but you all cross paths along the way.
Yes.
And I think that I guess just to be able to be in the space of people doing the same thing that you're doing and lifting them up.
Yes.
That's what I'm about, and sharing that space with other people when you have opportunities. When you think of writers from the past, James Baldwin and Nikki Giovanni, even Muhammad Ali and Nikki Giovanni, like when he couldn't practice as a boxer, he was doing his poetry with Nikki Giovanni. So traveling, and a lot of people don't know that. So it's always an opportunity to be in partnership with other writers and collaborate.
Exactly.
That's an experience that comes later. Like I had one experience where I've never met the person, but we were writing online. He liked my writing, I liked his. And he was a descendant of Edgar Allan Poe. And he would write, and he said that that's who would come to him in the middle of the night. And so I would wonder, like his writing was so like sporadic. Like 1 minute it's all this love stuff, and then another time it was like really angry and dark. And so I would get confused, but that was just his capacity as a writer. Yeah,
Channeling
yeah. So you
all
don't
those different levels of Edgar Allan Poe, because
you
Edgar
don't know
Allan
what's
Poe,
gonna come.
yeah, he'll take you there.
So we did a collaboration, and I think that was the first time I wrote something with another person. And it was so beautiful that I was like, wow, I saw so many things. Like it could be when I finish with all these other projects, it will be maybe an opera, a little play. And that's been about maybe a year and a half ago. And I haven't even gotten to that project yet. But like I said, that was just from one collaboration. And I know it would be something totally different if it was just me. So then when you start to write with other people, that's another shared experience.
Yes,
And you grow from that also,
yes,
because that's when you have that channel open and it's like, wow, like, because what they were thinking, you probably would never have that thought.
right.
So that's an opportunity to grow also. So you want to share your other pieces?
Circle the page, the whole damn page. Takes too much time to check off every box of the family history on that initial medical form you have to fill out when you go to a new doctor or medical facility. Longevity does not run in my family, maternal side particularly. My mother was the longest living one of her 11 siblings and died, passed away, left me when she was 78 years old from complications after a series of strokes. My grandmother died at 76, also from a series of strokes. My family suffers in silence, holds on to their hurt, pain, the large and small sights that marked and imprinted their lives from the cradle to the grave. Tuberculosis, cancer, mental illness, heart disease, aneurysms, and strokes, alcoholism, kidney disease, being poor, being black, feeling powerless. No one said they were sick until they were damn near dead or died. No condition happened overnight. It was a lifetime of becoming undone, unraveling, and the end was always in sight. The end is always in sight. Never having proper health care, dental care, many died with few teeth or of lucky dentures. There was no time for second opinions. Usually we were just last resorts. Come home. We'll keep you company, make you comfortable as we can. Sometimes I felt as if some of us didn't even die of the disease, but the denial of the disease and its symptoms, the illnesses we never shared. And we always looked at each other, confused, and then with resignation. We don't have long for this world.
Wow. Thank you, Cynthia. Well, that says a lot. And especially, so obviously that speaks of, your family history. And, I guess you can say in the day of that we're living in, with healthcare being a major issue, what do you have to say about your feelings towards our healthcare? As somebody that was a survivor, and talk about like maybe some of the issues that you experienced and when you were going through that process, since some people in our political process seem to think that, these are issues that are made up and that are not serious. So did you experience like well, as a cancer survivor, it's hard like before. So pre-Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, pre-existing conditions would have been a problem. And I think pretty much, I think the number was 61% of the population suffered bankruptcies because of health care. So what was your experience like with health care at that time?
I think with my family, it definitely was, a matter of poverty, and not having affordable health care
Right.
that,
Just not
contributed
having
to
it.
the demise of a whole generation in
Right.
my family, you
Right.
know.
And it's a simple thing. And I think I'm just going to talk about affordable care now, because I think when Obamacare came, it helped so many people, and it also gave the wellness exams. So mammograms, the yearly checkups, dental, vision,
Yes.
some, I think, foot care, even for exercise, things that would make us stay healthy, be able to go to the doctor, because now you have health care.
Yes.
Simple. So I can't understand, like, why we're living in a time where we have a group of people that don't want people to stay healthy, and that's an issue that we have so many people fighting against. So,
Well, they don't want us to stay healthy because they want to kill us.
well, yeah. So call a thing a thing. So, but don't put out there that, oh, we can't afford it. Oh, people take advantage of the system. You can't do all of these things. And I was just listening to something, I think it was when the New Deal actually started, and that was computer age, everything, and it was so many millions of people that the government had to deal with, and that went well, and it survived all this time. So how can you be 30, 40 years in and advance, with technology, and still trying to fight something that's supposed to keep America strong?
I mean, we are the only
The weakest.
developed country
Right.
that has the types of policies that it has.
Right.
You can't continue your society without caring about people. And we're just insisting on that we are going to show the world we don't care about people.
Right.
We're going to put all this money towards a war
Right.
that we don't need to have, but we can't keep y'all alive and healthy and educated.
Right.
Right? So that's the way, America gets down. But the rest of the world doesn't do that.
Right.
You look at any other developed nation, the first thing they have is good healthcare policy.
And I know a number of doctors that have left this country to go to Canada. So, once they had children, and for the education system, and because they have
The healthcare
kids,
system,
they
yes.
want to go where they're going to be taken care of.
Yes.
And not living in America, sorry.
The stress
Yeah.
of just surviving, of just surviving here.
So just pray for our country, because it is in need of healing, and from the soul of what America stands for, so we can just pray that it heals. Okay. So anyway, just want to thank you so much, Cynthia, for coming today and sharing your lovely poetry. And I look forward to reading the volumes of books that I know will come in the future.
I thank you so much for this opportunity. This has been amazing. I appreciate your support and encouragement. It means a lot to me.
Thank you. Hi. Welcome back to the Ketriana Yvonne Show. I'm back with my next guest, Fred Monderson, who is a man of the community and of many hats, which I won't try to tell you about them, and I'll leave that to him. But first, he's also a poet, and we're going to start off with that. Take it, Fred.
Well, thank you very much this afternoon for inviting me. As you know, we met at short notice, so to speak, and I was able to just grab one of my poems.
Okay.
I'm not principally a poem, I'm a writer.
Right.
I'm an Egyptologist.
Okay.
And this poem, I can show you the top portion of it, but I wrote this in December 31, 01.
Okay.
So it's kind of old, but it's vintage.
Poetry never
And
gets old.
the title is You Can Do More, Queen Ames Nefertari, by Dr. Fred Monderson. And at one time, this was one of my better writing.
Okay.
Of course, I've to be
Just read it.
modest. I've grown from that time onward.
Wow.
But the poem says essentially, O great black goddess of the Nile River culture, gift of ancient Africa to the world, as ancestress of the 18th dynasty, a time of great marvels, your progeny defied your legendary courage, beauty, compassion, and inspiration. In time, your name became an amazing potion for healing, helping, and identification, thus attesting to the universality and magical potency of you as symbol. When Hatshepsut asserted and exercised that astute political power of African womanhood in a world dominated by males, she thwarted her critics and challengers, affirming her affinity with the revered Nefertari, ancestress of the 18th dynasty. You, Nefertari, who married Ahmose, founder of the new empire, cannot be compared with Nefertiti, Tadjukippa's daughter, wife of Amenhotep IV. Though Nefertari, your namesake, whose portrait rests in the Valley of the Queens, married Ramses II of the 19th dynasty, and he built a temple to her at Abu Simbel. You, Nefertari, sister and wife of Ahmose, mother of Amenhotep I, was similarly defied as a legendary and beautiful queen, are incomparable with mere mortals. Daughter of Kamose and Ahotep, sister, granddaughter of Sekenenre and Tetisheri, grandmother of Thutmose I. The courage and rich, bold blackness of your heritage is evident. Your family courageously expelled the dreaded Hyksos, who ruled in ignorance of Ra, as they set in motion one of the greatest intellectually, morally, spiritual, and artistic productive periods of Africa's greatness, never again matched in cultural achievement. Today you continue to inspire people, but particularly black men and women the world over. The powerful New Kingdom monarchs and the progeny of beloved Tameri, Kemet, Egypt, who issued forth from your sacred loins, left indelible impressions on the nations of the world. They glorified African deities, these black men and women of intellect, courage, and piety. Equally, Martian ethics undergirded their scholars, scientists, priests, artisans, and architects as they built majestic places of reverence and truly amazing houses or temples for eternal worship. All helped crystallize and found great glory in African theology, spirituality, and metaphysics. Today, the world relishes the culture your inspiration helped to bestow. Temples, tombs, feats of navigation, quarry, transportation, and erection of stone, and the art and architectural wonders of such holy places as Karnak and Luxor, the sacred Valley of the Kings, and the wonderful mansions of millions of years that adorn the great city of Thebes, are all testaments to the great majesty of a black African queen, whose posterity ruled the world, then bequeathed the light of wisdom that shines so majestically and beautifully to advance the lot of humankind. O great Nefertari, wife who stood in equality with your beloved husband Ahmose, your portrait in the British Museum, draped in earliest white, red, and blue, and I note, not red, white, and blue, but white, red, and blue, is truly an inspiring and enlightening joy to behold. For you embody the rich fullness of African male-female complementarity principle. Now, therefore, it is time to wear red, black, and green. This makes your name and your beauty forever inspirational, timeless, and legendary. And now resurrected, it will continue to motivate and propel Africa's sons and daughters forward. Thank
Wow, thank you. That was a lot. And I'm like, you said so much. It seemed like more than the words that was on the paper.
Well, except for the correction, because the world is full of misinformation.
Okay.
For example, and I come out of the Nile Valley culture. Okay, we are so misdirected in first of all in the orientation, because we are told about that it's north, south, east, and west. It's not.
Okay,
It's
tell us.
actually south, north, east, and
Okay.
west. Okay. It's simply secondarily we have been ingrained with the notion of red, white, and blue. And I ask you to look at my card, and you will notice the lady, Amos Nefertari, who incidentally is her poem I read, right? She is wearing the
Okay.
tricolor. But notice that white is the greater portion of her
Right.
dress, and red is simply a sliver.
Right.
So it should really be white, red, and blue. But it's been turned around so that now we accept red, white, and blue, which is not. It should be white, red,
Right.
and blue. Right? And there's much more. And this is what my research in this field has been about.
Okay.
Two of the great teachers that I've had, Dr. Leonard James
Okay.
and Dr. Yosef Ben Johanan, they both insisted that as a researcher, I find truth and expose it.
Okay.
And much of the historical record has been so distorted, and a lot of important information has been omitted, that we as thinking people who must be concerned about where our children and our grandchildren will be in 40, 50, 60, 100 years from today. We must make sure that we have proper, correct information to bequeath to them, so
Right.
that one of my teachers, I'm a product of the City University of New York. I have degrees from City Tech, Hunter College, John Jay, Brooklyn. I have a doctorate from Commonwealth Open University. But recently, one of my teachers, her name was Marimba Ani, and she did something on John Clark, John
Okay.
Henry Clark. I have a whole story about
Okay,
him.
tell me that story.
But in
brief.
the 1950s, Dr. Clark was saying it was time for African
truth.
people to become united.
Right.
Right? And she pointed out, Dr. Annie pointed out that we're almost at 2050, and we still got a long way to go. So we need to have, we need to get our act together.
Yeah.
We have to trust the revelations that our scholars make, because in the field, they're finding stuff that has been so distorted
Right.
that only by resolutely examining the record can we set our people on the right path.
Right.
For example, this morning I was reading. We've had this conflict about the Egyptians were a race of red people in Africa, right? And only this morning I actually found a particular source that said that the Egyptians, they killed red people because they were considered foreigners. Now that simple statement contradicts practically everything we know about, or how the distorted history has been presented to us. And that's why we have to think for ourselves, and we have to, like I said, trust.
Okay. So let me ask you this. So being that most of the audience may not have studied, as much as you have, what would be a basic step to take to learn our history? Like, what would be like a guide? Like, where would you start?
Okay.
I mean, because you're up here.
I am a Ben Johanan scholar. Okay. But in all modesty, I would recommend that your audience become Monderson scholars. You can check my name out on Amazon.com. I've got nearly 40 books up there. I've done the work for our people.
Right. Okay.
I've been a journalist in New York City. I've written for the Black Press in Brooklyn. Over 1,000 articles. When I was first starting out, well, not really first, but along the way, I met a young man who told me, says, you want to write, and I write historical nonfiction. He says, create a bibliography. So I started looking for information and putting it together and stuff like that. I encountered two European scholars. One's called Flinders Petrie, and another one, George Sarton. And these people, Flinders Petrie had 1,200, a bibliography of 1,200 pieces. And Sarton had more than that. So I set a bar for myself.
Okay.
I said I want to beat these guys. So I've done over 1,000 pieces of published. People who read the Black Daily in New York, in Brooklyn, may be familiar with my name, Frederick Monderson, okay, Dr. Fred Monderson. And then the books that I have. And I'm constantly, trying to be committed to different projects. But beyond my writing, I've been a community activist of some note, though I am more or less undiscovered. Because I was speaking to my son the other day. There was this movie called The Original Gangsters. Well, I'm one of the last original gangsters, not in the negative sense, but I work with the people who helped to shape Brooklyn. Okay, Sonny Carson, G2UC, Kennard, and several others who have had impacts.
So let's start with Sonny Carson and your role with Sonny Carson in the community. Let's share that experience. And give a short, for some people that don't know who Sonny Carson is.
Well, Sonny Carson was a black activist who in the 1950s was, like so many urban youth, involved in all kinds of activities. And he was arrested and put in prison. In a way, he found himself in prison, and he became an activist when he got out. He lived along the Fulton Street corridor between Bedford Avenue and Albany. He was a gang member, so on, like all young urban black youth and so forth. But after he came out of prison, he became conscious of all the stores in the black community were owned by non-black people. So he began to articulate that if we can shop here, we can work here. Then he moved from that and he moved into mom and pop stores. Let us own these little, whether it's the cigar store or the candy store or what have you. Then he moved into being an education activist. Okay. He was a principal in the Brownsville protests against the Board of Education, that though the city, the education system in the city of New York was predominantly black, there were hardly any black administrators. So they challenged that and ended up having black teachers, black administrators, black assistant principals, and stuff like that appointed.
And what year did that take place?
That took place in the late 60s.
Okay, and I think I benefited from that.
Right, okay. So, well, the more significant things, and he was working in different mediums and what have you, founding organizations. And in the late 90s, the U.S. Navy, and I hope that your audience will pay attention to this because it's not generally known. The U.S. Navy discovered in the Brooklyn Navy Yard the remains of a Navy member who died and was buried there. There was a time when the Brooklyn Navy Yard was a segregated black cemetery. A lot of they discovered the bones of Samuel Carson. And who was Samuel Carson? Samuel Carson was an enslaved African who lived in South Carolina, and he escaped from South Carolina, and he joined the U.S. Navy. He fought in the war of against Mexico in 1845, and he was killed and buried in the Navy Yard. So around 95, the Navy discovered him and turned over his bones to Sonny Carson, who was a prominent activist at the time, and Sonny didn't know what to do with it. So he formed this committee. I emerged as the chairman of the Bones Committee, and we debated for about 2 years as to what to do with the bones. Some say, let's bury him in Arlington National Cemetery, and others say, let's take him to Africa. So Sonny decided on repatriating Samuel Carson, his ancestor, in Ghana, West Africa, at a place called Asinmanso, which is a riverbed, and this river is where those Africans who were about to be brought into the Americas had their last bath. And they were entered into the door of no return. So Sonny's action opened the door of return to create a site of pilgrimage so that African Americans seeking their heritage in Africa could go there, and then from there move on to different areas where they are thought to have originated.
Right.
If I can interject here, there was a colleague that worked with me, Mr. Ames. He worked at the schools that I worked with. He had one of those unusual individuals. He had 2 additional fingers here, right? He had 6 fingers. 2 little. So he was in Ghana, and he wanted to go over to Togo, which these 2 states are juxtaposed, right? And he got to the immigration or whatever, the guy who's manning the border,
Right.
and the guy says to him, "What's your name?" He saw the 2 fingers, and he said, "What's your name?" He said, "My name is Richard Ames." Richard Ames? He took him to a village where everybody was named Ames, and everybody had the fingers. The fact of Alice Haley's finding his ancestor is fiction. He called it faction, right? But this was real. This is one of the only people that I've known of who was able to trace their ancestors back to Africa.
Wow.
Right? So anyway, Sonny was able to open the door of return, right? And that location is still there.
Okay.
Right. Some of the other people that worked with him that was also part of the fight for Brownsville, Ocean Hill, Brownsville. His name was Les Campbell, but you may know him as Jitu Wilsi. He's a great educator, and he lived there on Fulton and Claver Place.
Okay.
And recently, they were able to name Claver Place for him, right? And it's interesting because in the street naming arena, I served as Mary Pinkett is the first black woman to be elected to city council. She appointed me in '86 to the Community Board 8 in Brooklyn, which is across Eastern Parkway, across Atlantic Avenue towards Eastern Parkway. When she first met me, she said, "Monderson, I hear you walk on water." I said, "Well, I try." You know. Anyway, she appointed me to the seat, and then when she was finally retired, I wanted to run for her seat, and she says, "I don't want you to run for my seat. Too many people are doing it. I want you to keep an eye on everybody." So that was her admonition towards me. Okay, so I was on Community Board 8 for 30 years. I retired last year, resigned, I think, I must say. But I changed my board, Board 8, runs from Atlantic Avenue to Eastern Parkway, and from Flatbush to Ralph Avenue. And in that area, I've changed the names of 15 streets for black heroes that our people need to know more about it.
Right.
For example, Nostrand Avenue between Atlantic and Eastern Parkway. That street has been changed 4 times. The entire corridor has been named for James E. Davis,
Yeah. Okay.
the congressman that was killed. Park Place and Nostrand Avenue has been named for Sil Williamson. He was the guy who for many years sold trophies that schools would buy their trophies to give their students. Nostrand and Prospect Park Place has been named for Susan Smith McKinney Stewart. There's a liquor store right there, and right next to the liquor store, this lady she was the first female and the first black medical doctor in New York State. And her office was right there. And then she quit and she went west to be the physician for the Buffalo Soldiers, who were the black men in the army. All right. And then at St. Mark's, at Nostrand, there was a sanitation worker named Damon Allen. He was killed by his fame was that he ran into a building that was aflame, and he brought out a young lady. He saved her life, and he got killed there. I wouldn't go into all the details about it. So that street, and equally to Washington Avenue.
Okay.
At the corner, Lowry Corner, at Washington and Atlantic.
Yes, and
that's been named for Mary Pinkett, and at St.
Lowry.
John's, it's been named for the firemen. We lost 8 firemen in 9/11, and the next block at Lincoln has been named for Ethelyn Dubin.
Okay.
I named a place for.
Just tell me where my street gonna be.
Well, I must be a realist. Okay, they want you to die before you get a street. There was one exception where this lady named Anne-Marie Blinn. She was her street is at Brooklyn Avenue at Pacific, and we challenged the then mayor. He was having one of these town halls in our area, Rudy Giuliani.
Yeah.
We challenged him right there, and he signed off on it that she can get her street. So
Right.
she was able to get her flowers,
While she
and
was
she died
living.
within another 3 months or so.
Wow.
But this was an exceptional
Yes.
case. So I would like to work on your street, but you gotta die. I mean,
No.
everybody
Well,
want to go to heaven, but don't want.
I'm a changer, so that's why I'm gonna have my street while I'm living, because I change
We can
things
work on that. We can work on that because
and give people their streets while they're living, so they can walk in the work that they did while.
and
living.
they see their recognition. So that is it.
Yeah.
It's like we did when we supported the prison ship martyrs
Yes,
today.
yes.
You were there, so was I, and it is something that needs to be continued.
Yes.
So
So let me just mention that for a second. So anyway, we're members of the Old Brooklyn, the Society of Old Brooklynites.
So I said to someone once, I'm a son of I'm SOB. He said,
Exactly.
yes, you are. But he didn't know it's called Society of Old Brooklynites.
Yes. Because sometimes I change it around, but then I always remember when I come in the building at Borough Hall, and it's held, if you want to be a member, they meet the first Wednesday of every month at Borough Hall, and you can just sign in and come upstairs, and there's a monthly membership, and it's we have a historian every meeting, and they tell you about different things about Brooklyn's history.
The qualification is that you have to live in Brooklyn for 25 years.
Yes.
So if you're born in Brooklyn and you're over 25, you can automatically become a member.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
One. Yes. So I'm a qualified member since I was born in Brooklyn, left, came back, and still been here enough time to qualify. And maybe I think, and I'm always telling people, I'm probably one of the youngest members, because it is the Old Brooklynite Society. So anyway, tell me about So from all your experience and education, what is the main thing that currently today, the advice that you can give a generation of people or the people that's living now
First
of
of all,
where we need to start to reclaim the space that we live in, who we are as a people, and in the political climate right now. For me, I know that reparations was out there and how easily it's been shifted back and been replaced with the conversations for paying off student loans. But, I have my opinion about that. So what is it, the message that you would want to have people take on to carry us through and to bring us together as a people? And to be educated in the things that have been locked away, that you discovered.
We've got to do a number of things.
Okay.
Right? First and foremost, the New York Times is running a piece now called, I can't remember the name of it.
Right.
But the most important thing is that we have to claim America as ours. Right? Our family, our ancestors, their blood has been shed across America.
Yes.
They're buried here. They offer free labor. They've been discriminated against. So we cannot take, and when we travel an American passport. So we cannot let anyone say to us, go back from where you come. We ain't going nowhere. This is us here. Okay? We are more authentic than, I don't want to say it more than the Native Americans because we gave blood, sweat, and tears and more than that.
Yes.
So first of all, we have to claim America, right? Second, we have to be educated. This is an educated world.
And or maybe re-educated.
Well, if you start by being a Monderson reader, you'll get some of it. But we have to put in the time. Okay, we have to learn everything possible. And we must be able to stand firm as we confront the oppressor. Because the oppressor is working.
Right.
And they got plans for us. So we've got to think about preserving our children, our grandchildren's future. Okay, some of us are old fogies, we on the way out. But we got to make sure that our children, because they ain't going nowhere.
Right.
Okay? So, the education. One of the things that Sonny Carson did, he founded an organization called to name places for our heroes. The Committee to Honor Black Heroes, right? So he was instrumental in naming Fulton Street for Harriet Tubman.
Okay.
He laid the foundation. He didn't live long enough, but he challenged Marcus Garvey and Malcolm X. He was instrumental in getting restoration instituted where it is right now in that staff because it brought in economic revitalization for the community. There was a school in Empire Boulevard named after Toussaint Louverture, and he was able to lay the foundation for that. But I go across the nation. I was in Washington, D.C. a few days ago. All of the names that are on the buildings, they don't reflect us.
Right.
I'm thinking of writing a piece called The Exclusion of the Black Woman, because all of the images, you go into the Library of Congress, the Jefferson Building, we're not there. We're there as a few guards, okay? But all of those historic images are not of our people. And we must know this. And then we must guard ourselves for the long struggle, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, this is serious. This is serious about you, your children, and your grandchildren. Because if we fall asleep at the wheel, we out. Okay? Now, there's much more that we can do. We can understand what is the power of our dollar, how we spend our dollar. A few years ago, I was with Bob Law, the famous radio personality, and he was trying to get the channeling of our dollars. He called it our burger and fries money. Right? And he said if only 5% of our people stop buying this nonsense,
Right.
and or in Sonny's day, he would go downtown and say, "Well, listen, you don't need to spend all this money down here." Okay.
Go into.
After Bob Law, I'm just going to show how our community is saturated with fast food joints. So I went from Fulton Street to Eastern Parkway on that Northern corridor. I counted 23 food entities, not mentioning the delis.
Right.
This fast food stuff is killing us.
Yes.
Our heart rate, all of our cancers, everything has a relationship to what we eat.
Okay.
There was an ancient movie called The Education of
Sonny
L.B.
Carson?
Jones.
Oh.
L.B. Jones. Right? And he said, one of the lines was that black people control liquor stores, funeral parlors, and the numbers. Right?
I don't know
The
about
state
liquor
came,
store.
The state came in and took away the numbers. My daddy was a number runner. There's a book called that. Right? They take over that too. The liquor stores, Asians are controlling that, and we may have one or two funeral parlors,
Right.
but these profound economic
Basis
bases
for our community.
has slipped from us,
Systematically.
and we need to reorganize how we spend our money,
Right.
and so forth.
Okay.
So, but there's much more. Let me tell you about some of my books.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna let you tell. We have about 5 more minutes. So you we're gonna do 5 more minutes. You're gonna sum up your books, and just.
Well, the thing is that if you wanted to be familiar with my work, I'm not as proficiently writing for the newspapers as I'm writing books now, and I've got stuff on YouTube under my name, Frederick
Right.
Monderson. But I've got a lot of stuff on Amazon.com
Okay.
under my name.
So I have the card. So I'm gonna post all your websites where all your stuff can be found. Blackfolkbooks.com and.
Well, Amazon. Is
Okay,
where
on Amazon.
You need to connect with me,
Okay.
or you can.
We'll get it straight. Okay. So in closing, what is the final hat that you want to share that you wear?
Well, I'm a father, a husband. I'm a brother. I'm the chaplain for the Society of Old Brooklynites. I'm a scholar. I'm a researcher and things like that. I want to emphasize something that Dr. Ben Johanan told me as a young student on my path. He said, first of all, he emphasized. First of all, his associate, Dr. Professor Simmons, George Simmons, he said to me, he was in the hospital. He called me, said, Monderson, I don't write or speak about Martin Luther King or Malcolm X. Too many people do that. I teach about ancient Egypt, which is the foundation of all forms of knowledge that our people need to know about.
Okay.
So Dr. Ben said to me, he said, Monderson, there are 50 countries in Africa at that time, in 1972. He said, choose one and become a specialist on it rather than a general. So
Right.
I became an Egyptologist. I've done all my work in there. He says, secondly, he says, when you're writing on Egypt or researching, get the oldest material you can find and work from there. And thirdly, when I first went to him in the mid-'80s, he says, now that you've come to Egypt and seen what you have seen, what are you going to do with the knowledge? He says, publish or perish, and encourage our people to go to Egypt so that the monuments can teach them.
Wow.
So, well, that's some of it.
But
I know
I
you
like-
don't have the time.
No, you can make time for everything.
Yes.
But I like how you sum that up.
Okay.
So, and I have another question. I don't know if you've been to the African American
I was
Museum.
there. I was there to inquire. When was it? Thursday morning. How to donate something to the museum. Okay, I have 4 historic pieces that I want to donate to the museum. So they tell me to go online at the www African American Museum and follow the leads, and then so forth.
I'm just going to share one piece about that. Like the information that you shared today, I just felt like it's such a wonderful institution that was created to preserve and show our culture. But for me, it was like we needed another level. You know, we started with slavery again. So it was like we need to go to Africa and have that preserved in a museum. This history that you're talking about, because we don't have that. You know, we have African American museums that still start with slavery as if we had no history. And then we have statues that are in regular, museums, but they're not our story.
Well, you see,
Per
the
se.
biggest problem that we have is that everybody's on a different track or
Of
lane,
what they
and
want.
we don't really make the connections. Someone as important as you are, you can be able to bring threads together,
Right.
so that some of these projects can be accomplished. For instance, for 30 years, I wanted to establish a library in Brooklyn, a black library. My principal called it a miniature Schaumburg. I even had a congressman in my home, but I haven't gotten anywhere because I can't make the connection.
All right, so we will make a connection for a project that you want to create, and we will connect the people, because we are the people, and the only way it's going to happen if we all get together and do these things. And it's enough of us, and I think I know a handful of them. So.
Yes,
So we'll talk about that.
Yes.
So anyway, I just want to thank you for sharing all of this history that I wish that we could learn as much as you. And you gave us a start. And I thank you for all the work that you have done. And I thank you for coming to the show on short notice. And we will have you back, and always feel welcome to come and share your messages. Okay?
I want to thank
Thank you.
for giving me the opportunity to
No
sit
problem.
here with you.
Thank you.
You're doing a tremendous job, okay, as a conduit. And I could only encourage you to keep it up, keep up the
Yes.
good work, and, you will be remembered. And we got to work on that street naming before too late, okay?
That's right. All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So we're gonna. Thank you. Like I said once again, I'm Ketriana Yvonne, and this was the show. And I'll see you next month. Look out for my show on the HD channel as well. And once again, Fred Monderson.